We have some cognate roots, and we're going to look at the center letter, the aleph. We'll be inserting some other gutturals, ragash, resh gimel shin, and ra'ash, resh ayin shin. Ragash means to agitate, to begin a motion. And even in Bereshit, in Genesis, as we see that in the beginning, the idea is that there's some motion that's being caused to begin. So the idea of motion is very closely associated with the beginning of something. And in Psalm 2:1, it says, "Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing?" Why are the people agitated? Why are they beginning to be in motion against the Lord of glory? Ra'ash also is a kind of agitation that's a noise or a tumult, and by extension it means an earthquake. Psalm 68:8. The earth shook, and the heavens also dropped at the presence of God. Even Sinai itself was moved at the presence of God, the God of Israel. In Isaiah 29:6, thou shalt be visited of Yahweh of hosts with thunder and with earthquake and great noise and storm and tempest and the flame of devouring fire. So our question is now, what does Omer Reisheet mean in the spiritual life of a believer? This day marks the day of the resurrection of Yeshua the Messiah. 1 Corinthians 15:20. But now is Messiah risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept. In other words, not sleeping like a normal sleep, but even as he was talking about in the story of Lazarus, sleep means death. And we know that Messiah is the first fruits of the dead. First, by becoming believers, we become bound to serve a new master. And we see in so many places, James 1:1, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Messiah Yeshua. 2 Peter, he calls himself a servant and an apostle of Messiah Yeshua. Jude calls himself a servant. And in Galatians 1:10, for do I now persuade men or God? Or do I seek to please men? For if I have yet pleased men, I should not be the servant of Messiah. People are pictured as sheaves in Micah 4:12, but they know not the thoughts of Yahweh, neither understand they his counsel, for he shall gather them as the sheaves into the floor. In Joseph's dream, we clearly see the people being pictured as sheaves, although the word for sheaf is not Omer there, it's a different word. A future resurrection is our inheritance. Romans 6:5, for if we had been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. In 1 Corinthians 15:23, but every man in his own order. Messiah is the first fruits, as we learned. Afterward, they that are Messiahs at his coming. Our resurrection is a promise in John 6:39 and 40. And this is the Father's will which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. There was an earthquake at the time of the resurrection. Matthew 28:2. And, behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven, and came and rolled back the stone from the door, and sat upon it. And there will be a future earthquake at the return. Zechariah 14:4. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof, toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. So this day marks the beginning of what is called Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. And we are commanded to count the Omer for 7 weeks and 1 day, 50 days altogether. The word for count, safar, also means to recount or relate. So we see the words are related also in English as well as in Hebrew, count and recount. to count by numbers or recount to tell a story. We are to spread the news from this time going forth. Mark 16:20. And they went forth and preached everywhere, the Lord working with them and confirming the word with signs following. And also praising the Lord, Luke 24:53. And they were continually in the temple, praising and blessing God. I'm sure there are many other inferences that you can draw out from these word roots and meanings. We know that Omer Reisheet is the day that Yeshua was resurrected from the dead, that he's the first fruits of that resurrection, and at the right time we will follow him. In the meantime, we are to count the time and recount the greatness of Yahweh and Yeshua and what he has done in the world and in our lives. So tasimet ha'inayim al hashamayim. Keep your eye on the sky, your redemption draweth nigh. Shalom.